In a narrow alley not far from the hustle and bustle of Sensuji Temple, there stood a small bookstore that was almost invisible from the main street of Asakusa. Its wooden sign had faded with age, the kanji letters slowly peeling, as if storing stories older than the memories of those who passed by it. Many tourists walked past without ever realizing its existence, too busy chasing photos of the giant red lantern or the sweet aroma of ningyo, yaki, cakes. Yet for those who happened to wander into that alley, the small bookstore felt like a secret door to another world, quieter, slower, and filled with whispers of memories. Every morning, before the souvenir shops opened their doors, the owner of the bookstore had already slid open its wooden door. His name was Morita Haru, a man nearly 60 years old, with hair beginning to turn white and round glasses that always slipped down his nose. He opened the shop not in haste, but through a simple ritual, sweeping the alley, watering the small potted plants in front of the shop, then standing still for a moment, gazing at the often gray Asakusa sky. For him, the bookstore was not merely a place of business, but an extension of his own life. When he had lived for decades among wooden shelves filled with old books, the interior of the shop was cramped, only wide enough for two people to stand side by side, without brushing against each other. The bookshelves rose almost to the ceiling, filled with old novels, collections of haiku, books on Japanese history, and literary magazines that had long ceased publication. The scent of aged paper mixed with the smell of wood and green tea that Haru often brewed created a warm and calming atmosphere. In the corner of the shop, there was a small table with a low chair, where Haru usually sat reading while waiting for the few customers who came by. One afternoon in early autumn, when the leaves had begun to change color, and the wind carried a cool breeze from the Sumida River, a young woman stopped in front of the bookstore. Her name was Aiko, a freelance illustrator who had just moved to Tokyo in search of a new beginning after her life began to feel stagnant. At first, she was merely walking without purpose, trying to escape the noise of the city and her own thoughts, when her eyes caught sight of the weathered wooden sign of the bookstore. Her steps came to a halt, as if something were quietly calling her inside. As soon as the sliding door opened, a small bell rang softly. Haru lifted his face from the book he was reading and offered a faint smile. Aiko returned the smile awkwardly, then began to wander along the shelves, her fingers brushing against the spines of the books one by one. She felt like a child discovering a secret hideaway. In the midst of her search, a notebook with a dark blue cloth cover caught her attention. There was no title on the cover, only the year of publication printed in small letters on the corner of the first page. "That's an old collection of essays," Haru said gently, as if he did not want to break the stillness of the shop. "Written by a school teacher who recorded small things in his life. About rain, about waiting for trains, about loneliness." Aiko opened a few pages and read a short passage simple, yet it felt close to her heart. Without much thought, she decided to buy the book. From that day on, Aiko often returned to the small bookstore in the Asakusa Alley. Sometimes she bought books. Other times she simply sat reading in the corner while chatting with Haru there. Conversations were never heavy. About the changing seasons. About Tokyo that continued to transform. About memories from the past that appeared suddenly without invitation. From Haru, Aiko learned that the bookstore had once belonged to Haru's father, who opened it after the war, as a place where people could seek refuge from a harsh reality. To Haru, Aiko was a visitor who brought a fresh breeze. She reminded him of himself in his youth, when he still believed that books could save a person. Meanwhile, for Aiko, the bookstore became a shelter, a safe space to breathe and to rediscover the part of herself that had slowly been lost amid life's demands. She began creating illustrations inspired by old books and Haru's stories, drawing the Asakusa Alley, dim lanterns, and the warm little bookstore. One day, rain fell heavily without warning. The Asakusa Alley, usually quiet, became even more deserted. Aiko was caught in the rain and took shelter in the bookstore longer than usual. She sat on the small chair, listening to the sound of rain striking the roof. Haru brewed a cup of warm tea and placed it in front of her. In that silence, Aiko realized something. She no longer felt alone. In a city as vast as Tokyo, she had found a place that made her feel at home. The small bookstore in the Asakusa Alley might one day disappear, replaced by new buildings or swallowed by time. But as long as its wooden door could still be slid open and its books could still be read, the shop would continue to live on as a silent witness to simple encounters that changed someone's life. Between old pages and quiet conversations, the bookstore held a small miracle that sometimes all we need is a place to pause for a moment and listen to stories, whether from books or from our own hearts.